This is Station Zero, or what's left of it, broadcasting from beneath what used to be Salt Lake's westbound metro line. My name is Miles Harrington. If you can hear this, you're listening to a world that should have paused, but didn't. It began 47 days ago. A tremor, short-lived and shallow. Nothing unusual, nothing headline-worthy. I marked it in my old notebook next to scribbled grocery lists and unpaid bills. But it never ended. The earth, it seems, no longer sleeps. It hums now, constant, low, like an animal beneath your feet, exhaling. Forever. I've watched concrete ripple like a tide. Glass doesn't shatter anymore. It just sings, vibrating into dust. Most people ran during the second week, east mostly. A few headed north, chasing myths of stability. But when the roads cracked open like mouths, we all stopped chasing. Down here, among dust and static, I keep talking. Not because I think someone's listening, but because silence feels heavier than the collapse. The transmission grid's fragmented. I'm patching through what I can. Solar trickle charge, backup batteries, and copper wire scavenged from vending machines. This mic was built for concert halls. Now it's an artifact of a world that clapped and cheered. If you're out there, if the ground beneath you still remembers how to be still, tell me. Even if it's just to say you're breathing. This is Miles. Still broadcasting, still surviving. The tremors aren't random anymore. That's what's strangest. There's a rhythm to them. I've spent the last few nights measuring pulses on the old seismic rig I salvaged from the university ruins. It's crude, but it picks up what matters. What we're experiencing is an aftershock. It's harmonic motion, a resonance deep inside the mantle, long, low waves that don't stop. Imagine a guitar string plucked beneath your home, but instead of music, it carries destruction. It isn't violent, not all the time. It's persistent, like breath. Like blood. The intermountain seismic belt. It used to be textbook theory. Ava and I used to argue over its relevance during lectures. She believed the interconnected faults would one day behave like one long broken chain. I believed in data. She believed in intuition. Maybe she was right. Now, I wonder if this isn't just a natural quake. If maybe the crust itself is thinning, too stretched, too worn, and the whole western plate is vibrating because it can no longer bear the load of memory. Cars rattle even when parked. Teeth hurt. There's a hum in my molars I can't get rid of. I've stuffed blankets into the corners of the studio to keep the sound from bouncing, but it lives in the walls. I wonder if we put our ears to the ground now, would it speak? Would it say, I warned you? This is Station Zero. Still trembling, still listening. I passed the freeway ruins again. This morning. The westbound overpass split on day 3. No warning, no crescendo. Just a soft groan. And then gravity. There were 17 cars on top, by my count. A few were flattened so completely, they looked like old postcards. Warped, sunburnt, unread. In one of them, I found a pair of shoes. Tiny, blue, still buckled. They couldn't have been more than 4 years old. The child. Or the shoes. I didn't move them. I couldn't. The dust there has settled into silence too deep to disturb. I remember learning that we bury the dead, not for them, but for us, to mark their story, to remind the living. But what happens when the whole world becomes a burial ground? Do we still mark? Or do we just forget? I'm speaking their names into this mic, not because I knew them, but because they deserve a voice, even if it's borrowed. This is Miles, still remembering. The tremors haven't stopped, but tonight they've softened. They're slow now, almost like lullabies, like the earth is rocking itself to sleep, unsure if it wants to wake again. So I'm playing something. It's a record I found in the rubble of an old music store. Scratched to hell, but the needle holds steady. Ella Fitzgerald, I think. Maybe Chet. Hard to say through the static, but it's soft, human, something real, the kind of sound that isn't survival. But soul, I'll let it spin until the charge runs dry. If you're listening, wherever you are, close your eyes. Feel the floor. Let it hum. Let it hold you. This is Station Zero. Miles, signing off until the earth remembers stillness. This is Station Zero, broadcasting on a threadbare signal through a throat of broken copper. Miles here. The ground hasn't slept, and I don't think it remembers how. I've been collecting transmissions all night. Some barely whispers, others like screams caught in static. Fault ruptures are stacking like dominoes from Idaho down through Arizona. It's not just tremors anymore. It's translation. The earth is speaking in languages we were never meant to hear. I read a message from a man near Boise. Said he watched the pavement curl like bread in a flame. Another came from a nurse near Flagstaff, described the sound of the ground splitting as wet and metallic, like a zipper, torn through mud and steel. None of this aligns with traditional quake behavior. The faults are sinking, echoing each other, moving in sympathy, not separation. It's like the planet's spine is unraveling thread by thread, and we are the trembling skin stitched to it. I map what I can, mark the cities as they fall silent. Some names I say out loud, some I can't. It feels too much like writing eulogies in real time. If anyone west of Denver still has ground beneath them, ping me back. Even a hum, a hiss. Just enough to know the West hasn't gone completely dark. This is Miles, still listening. Still here. Ava said this would happen. Years ago, when we were still working out of the Earth Sciences building at the university, back when coffee was hot and faults were just theory. She called them domino fractures. Not in the official literature, of course. That kind of naming didn't survive peer review. But she said if pressure points aligned just wrong, just long enough, entire regions could collapse in sequence. Like glass, under slow, steady breath. I laughed at her once, called it poetic nonsense. We still had building codes, regulations, satellites blinking above us like guardians. Now, when I hear the fault lines rupture in harmony, when one quake calls another like a hymn, I hear her voice in the cracks. The last message I got from Ava was 3 weeks ago. A burst of data over a compressed channel. Topo maps, stress simulations, and a short line of text. It's happening. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she made it past the first break. But when I feel the hum beneath the metal of this desk, I feel her hand tracing fault lines across a screen, whispering, "Find the gaps, Miles. Always find the gaps." I hope she found one wide enough to stand in. Still searching. Still remembering. Got a line tonight from a contact out of what used to be Reno. Or the edge of it. He said the city didn't crack. It liquefied. Said the roads rolled like syrup, slow at first, then suddenly gone. Houses sliding off their foundations, streetlights tipping over like wilted flowers. It's called soil liquefaction, happens when water-saturated ground loses structure under stress, but we've never seen it on this scale. Entire blocks gone under as if the crust forgot how to be solid. He described it like watching a throat swallow, structures sinking into the earth like food, unchewed, unacknowledged. I asked him if anyone made it out. He didn't answer for a while. Then he said, some of us did. But we left people calling from rooftops. And then there were no rooftops. I keep thinking about the name, Reno. It used to mean neon casinos, fast marriages. Now it's a slurry of homes and history. No rescue convoys are coming. The roads are memory. The only map now is movement, the shift of dust, the absence of light. If you're near Reno and alive, signal me. We'll draw new lines. Together. Mid-broadcast tonight, the signal spiked, then dropped to nothing. Silence like a scream that forgot how to end. I ran upstairs, Half the relay was hanging by a thread of wire and prayer, swaying above the stairwell like a tired limb. Dust everywhere. The tremor wasn't strong, but it was deep. The kind that echoes up your bones before you hear it. I climbed the ladder with the transmitter slung over my back, hand on the frame, breath loud in my ears. Every few seconds, the ground gave a little twitch, like it wanted to shrug me off. Reconnected the line, rebooted the charge. The mic sparked back to life. I spoke through shaking lips, breathing like I'd outrun something ancient. And I said, "Still here, still on air." Not because I felt brave, not because anyone needed me to, but because this voice, this fragile thread humming into the dark, is the only thing I know to hold on to. So if you're listening, if your hands are on the dirt or the dial, know that mine are too. This is Miles, voice in the quake, signal in the silence. Still broadcasting. This is Station Zero. The signal is shaky tonight. The hum beneath the concrete has a new rhythm. Longer, deeper, like a breath taken in, but never exhaled. Salt Lake is no longer a city. It's a wound, a hollowed out memory with jagged edges and settling dust. The second collapse came without sirens, without warning, without even a tremor. Downtown just dropped, as if the ground had finally grown tired of holding the weight. You hear stories of buildings falling like dominoes, but this wasn't that. It was slower, stranger, like the earth unzipped itself and swallowed the center hole. The skyline slumped in on itself like a dying lung. I watched from a rooftop 3 blocks north. There was no noise, no scream, just this strange silence, like the world was holding its breath out of respect or disbelief. People ran, yes. Some didn't. Some froze in place, as if rooted by something deeper than fear. I walked the edge of the crater this morning. Rebar bent like bones. Asphalt peeled back in sheets. And somewhere beneath it all, buried under steel and memory, libraries, coffee shops, hospital wards, I heard music. Faint. A ringtone maybe. Or a piano loop still playing beneath tons of dust. The worst part wasn't the loss. It was how gentle it looked from a distance, like a city bowing its head. I marked the location on the map I keep beside the transmitter, not because it helps, but because forgetting is too easy in a world this loud. There was a woman in the rubble. We found her in the afternoon. The air was thick with gypsum and scorched copper. The light bent in strange ways through the dust. Her name tag was half buried beneath a torn sleeve. Juniper. A nurse? I remember how the letters were still clean, untouched by the soot. She was holding a child. I don't know who he was. No name, no ID, just soft hair and a blue jacket that had been zipped all the way up. They were both gone. But her hand was still gripping his, rigid, determined. She had no oxygen mask, no protective gear, just instinct. I sat beside her for a while, not speaking. The others kept digging. I couldn't move. The child's cheek had pressed against her collarbone, as if he'd fallen asleep there. That's what care looks like in the end, isn't it? Not dramatic, not loud, just refusal. She refused to let go, even when the ceiling came down, even when the world ended. I wonder if anyone remembers her voice. If not, let this broadcast carry it forward, not in sound but in defiance, in the shape of her hand closed around someone smaller than herself. The collapse wasn't just structural, it was systemic. The signs were there long before the buildings fell. Beneath the soil, the heat had been rising. Geothermal pockets, once deep and stable, are now expanding like lungs filled with flame. The crust is thinning. I pulled old sensor data this morning from the backup drive. The pressure under the western plate isn't dropping. It's surging. This isn't just tectonic fatigue. It's a full body failure. The subduction zone's retreating. Magma's pushing upward in places it was never supposed to reach. There used to be a thermal cap, a sort of crustal ceiling that held the energy down. That cap is buckling. We're not just dealing with quakes now. We're dealing with geothermal overpressure, a boiling world beneath a cracking shell. If it continues, we're looking at steam ruptures, soil collapse from below, gas vents that burn oxygen before it reaches your lungs. We were taught to fear volcanic eruptions, but no one warned us about invisible fire, about heat that rises not in explosions, but in silence. The air down here is getting warmer, slightly, enough that I've started measuring CO2 levels near the floor. Not out of paranoia, out of respect. The planet isn't angry. It isn't punishing us. It's just releasing everything it's been forced to hold. And we're standing on top of a memory it no longer wants to carry. If you've got sensors, run them. If you've got breath, count it. Still miles, still below. I managed a call tonight. Shortwave, crackled through like a ghost walking over gravel. Dr. Ellis. Haven't spoken to him in years. He was one of the last geologists still operating near the Four Corners bunker system. Said he hadn't seen daylight in 19 days. Said he didn't miss it. I asked him about the plate. Not in theory. In reality, he said it's breaking. Not shifting. Not drifting. Breaking. His model showed fragmentation. Not continental, but subcrustal. Like the western shelf of the North American plate is peeling into smaller shards. That's not a metaphor, it's literal. A shattered skeleton beneath us. He called it lithospheric splintering. Said it was irreversible. And then his voice dropped, just for a second. He said, "There will be no more stable zones, only slower collapses." The line cut shortly after. I marked his last coordinates, somewhere near Durango. If he's right, the ground itself is becoming unreliable. No more solid truths, no more bedrock certainties. I'm still here, still under Salt Lake, still pretending the concrete above me means something. This is Miles, still transmitting from the cracks. This is Station Zero, still patched in, still alive, still trying to understand what the static is saying tonight. I've been tuning across broken bands for the past 6 hours, and something's changed. The silence used to be pure, empty, a vacuum. Now it's crowded, full of fractured syllables, pulses, distant voices stitched together like badly spliced tape. From what I can tell, they're ghost broadcasts, looping messages from cities already gone, signals trapped in atmospheric echo. Maybe it's interference. Maybe it's memory. I caught fragments from Sacramento, a weather alert, automated, choked halfway through a sentence. Low pressure system over the... And then just static again. Los Angeles whispered back next. I recognized the tail end of a school closure announcement. Children's voices behind it. Laughter, like they didn't know. Then something else came through. A coded ping, repeating every 17 seconds, always with the same numbers. 44.112 minus 121.774. A spot somewhere in Oregon, west of Bend. I don't know what's there. A shelter? A failed relay? Or just another voice reaching for the surface? I record everything. Not because I think it matters now, but because the sound of reaching, of trying, deserves to be remembered. Every voice we lost is still speaking, through crumbled transmitters, through cracked wiring, through dust. The ruins are not quiet. They hum, they grieve. They try to find their way home. And I try to listen. Still miles. Still on frequency. Still remembering. I've been thinking about resonance, about how sound travels, not just across space, but through structure. Seismologists used to call it wave propagation through a stressed medium. Now we just call it life. The crust, if you imagine it, is like a stretched drumhead. The constant tremors, they're not random. They're rhythm, fractured, uneven rhythm sent out by a wounded instrument. This planet hums now. It vibrates. The tremors don't end because the earth isn't resting. It's reverberating. And we, those of us left, are the echo. Every sound we send, every word I speak into this mic, it bounces off caverns, through broken cities, across the bones of fault lines that no longer sleep. We're used to thinking of communication as linear, point A to point B. But now it's like we're all trapped in one vast echo chamber, each of us calling out to no one, and to everyone. A signal from New Mexico once bounced back to me 4 days later, warped and slower, as if the air had to think about it first. Maybe this is why the ruins are talking. Maybe the collapse turned the earth into a kind of memory box, not one for preservation, but for release. Not silence, reverberation. So if your signal bends back toward you, or if you hear yourself in someone else's message, don't be afraid. It just means the planet remembers, even when we forget. It came through just after midnight, clearer than anything I've heard in weeks. A voice, no modulation, no static halo, just quiet repetition. Calm, human, impossibly steady. We're still down here, it's not over. And then again, same words, same tone, same pause between each phrase. I traced the source as best I could. Cascadia, somewhere near the edge of the subduction zone, an area that officially went dark 18 days ago. No rescue beacons, no new quake markers, no thermal spikes, just absence. I don't know if it was a recording. I don't know if it was real. But it had weight. Like it was carved into the signal, not just carried by it. We're still down here. That sentence alone is a revolution, because down there means trapped, means buried, means someone is still breathing in a pocket of soil and darkness and hope. But also, it's not over, and that can mean anything. Maybe they meant survival. Maybe they meant collapse. Maybe they meant history isn't done writing itself. Either way, I've looped the recording twice on my own signal. If anyone recognizes the voice or knows of an active shelter in that region, reply. Not for me, for them. Because if they're still speaking, they deserve to be heard. Even the smallest whisper can hold the shape of a city. I haven't heard from Jonah in 30 days. He was building quake-resistant shelters on the edge of Seattle when the last real transmission came through. He'd managed to reinforce 4 blocks before the network dropped. His last message was short. Just text, no voice. Still working, cold. Kid's okay. We'll check back soon. That word, soon, has a different meaning now. I remember the last time I hugged him at the train station. Before I left for Utah, he said, "You always run toward the fault lines." And I said, "Only when they start whispering." We laughed. He handed me a flashlight with cracked tape and a new battery, like it would save me. I haven't changed the battery since. Sometimes I wonder what he'd think of this signal. Me talking into the dark, night after night, voice fraying at the edges. Would he call it brave? Or foolish? Would he recognize the sound of my breath between words? Some nights I sent him messages into the static. No address, no response expected. I just say his name, over and over. Because sometimes the echo is enough to believe in. If you're near Seattle, if you hear me, tell him I'm still here. Tell him I still carry his flashlight. This is Miles, still transmitting, still surviving. This is Station Zero, Miles broadcasting from beneath what used to be the western edge of the Wasatch. The sun hasn't risen in 3 days. Not properly. What light does break through is filtered through ash, bruised and unnatural, like something peering at us through burned gauze. I stood near the ladder this morning, stared upward through the warped skylight, and tried to remember the name of the color the sky used to be, not the blue of textbook illustrations, not the gold of childhood memory. I mean the real one, Sky at noon over a clean horizon. Now all I see is gray, but not a soft gray, a wrong gray. A gray that smells like old batteries and sulfur. The ash clouds have thickened across Utah, spilled into western Colorado. Reports from scattered relays say geothermal ruptures, mostly around fault basins, have breached the surface. Pockets of superheated gas and dust spewing into the atmosphere like the planet's lungs exhaling their final breath. When you stare at the sky too long now, you begin to feel it staring back, not in malice, just in emptiness, like it doesn't remember what it used to hold. A few birds still fly, but off course and confused, their feathers mottled with dust. The trees don't whisper anymore. They don't move. And people, those still moving, have stopped looking up, because when heaven closes its eyes, you learn to navigate in shadow, still here, still blinking through the dim. There was a storm yesterday, not lightning, not thunder, just a sound like soft whispering against the walls. When I stepped outside to check the solar cells, the rain left streaks on the metal, long white trails like salt on skin. My hand stung, not sharp pain, just enough to make me flinch like an old dog remembering the leash. The rain's changed. Sulfur dioxide, released from the geothermal vents, binds to water vapor in the atmosphere. When that vapor condenses, when it becomes rain, it falls as diluted sulfuric acid. Not enough to kill, not yet, but enough to burn leaves into lace, enough to turn asphalt sticky, enough to blister. The pH levels in runoff have dropped below 4. Some areas closer to the vent cores are seeing readings in the mid-2s. For reference, lemon juice sits at about 2.5. Imagine that falling from the sky. Imagine breathing that mist. I've wrapped the ventilation intakes in carbon mesh and chewed filter cloth. It's not perfect, but it buys time. What worries me most isn't the rain. It's the wind, the way it carries the particulates, the way it coats everything in a fine powder of something not yet named. Air should cleanse, but now it corrodes. Still here, still breathing, carefully. Some of you asked about the Skywalker convoy. I tracked them until yesterday. They were a team of 4, mechanics, drivers, a nurse, headed east to deliver a shipment of makeshift filtration systems to a mountain community past Glenwood. They called themselves Skywalkers because they always traveled by ridgeline. Said it kept them above the sink zones. Said the view helped them stay sane. They left a week ago. They were supposed to check in every 12 hours. The last message came in just after dusk. Visibility down, sky glowing red at the edge, taking the long route around the fracture, still pushing. Then nothing. I replayed their route on the topographic table. The fracture they referred to has since widened, according to the new seismics, by at least 30 meters. It's possible they were on it when it shifted, or worse, near one of the steam vents when it opened. Then, just a few minutes ago, a voice broke through the relay. Weak, tired. Skywalkers, Ludo, still here. I patched him through. I'll let him speak after this. But I'll say this first. Hope is not a clean thing. It doesn't come polished or certain. It arrives on half-dead signals and broken men. Ludo's the last. He's got a story to tell. I think we owe him our silence. This is Ludo. His voice, not mine. He said the words slow, as if they were heavier now than when he first heard them. We hit the rise at dusk. The air was thick, sulfur and heat. Carla was driving. She saw it first. The vent tearing open just ahead. No sound, just steam and a rush like the breath of a sleeping giant. He paused, took a breath. Jacob? He stayed with the truck, tried to keep the engine cool. He told me, keep the engine running, even if I stop. Ludo's voice cracked then, the kind of crack that doesn't heal. I kept it running for 2 days alone. Static followed, no questions, no commentary. That was his eulogy. Just an engine running long after a man was gone. We remember them. In motion, in defiance, in machines kept alive a little too long. The floor's moving again, not a quake, A groan, a reminder, the kind of deep motion you don't feel in your feet, but in your ribs, behind your teeth. The mic shook just now, just for a second. That's my cue. If this signal cuts, know I was here, still speaking, still believing someone is out there listening. This is Miles, beneath the ash, beneath the hum, still broadcasting, still surviving. This is Station Zero. Miles broadcasting, throat dry, signal low, but heart doing something it hasn't done in weeks. Lifting. There's a flicker, a ripple on the eastern edge of the map, past what's left of Wichita, past the blight line, beyond the blackout of the old interstates. The Kansas relay lit up late last night. Stable signal, no artifacting, no distortion, just a steady, unwavering hum, then a voice. Software measured, real. They called it Sanctuary Field. Said they had water, solar grid operational, low population, med kits, stable ground, actual ground, no sinkholes, no harmonic activity beneath their zone. A phrase I haven't heard in weeks. The crust is still solid here. I paused the transmission 3 times before letting it finish. Not because I doubted what I was hearing, but because I was afraid of what it meant if it were true. Hope has been scarce lately. It feels radioactive, beautiful, but dangerous to handle. But I replayed it again and again, and every time that signal held. No drift, no slippage, no ghosting. I ran diagnostics on my end, checked for loopbacks, for AI mimicry, nothing. Just human breath, human rhythm, and human pauses between sentences, which means someone is still alive, not surviving in the shadows, but living in the open, speaking into the void with something we've all forgotten. Invitation. It's not confirmation, not yet, but it's something close to it. A shape in the fog that doesn't vanish when you blink. I marked the frequency on the wall, not in chalk, in ink. Still Miles, still listening, still hoping. I'm going to share the coordinates, but not without hesitation. 39.0158 degrees north, 97.3453 degrees west. If you write that down, do it in pencil. If you follow it, do it with your eyes wide open. Because I've learned, hope can be a mirage, and sometimes a signal this clean is bait with sugar on its breath. It wouldn't be the first time. There was a relay in Colorado that played an automated distress call for 9 days. 7 people followed it. Only 1 came back. Said the source was a collapsed tower looping a voice long dead. But this feels different. Not just in clarity, in intent. Still, I say this with caution. If you leave your shelter, if you leave your roots, you're gambling with more than distance. You are trading the hell you know for the hope you don't. Still, some of you will go. I don't blame you. I'm not going. I can't. This station isn't mobile. The signal dies the moment I pull the tower loose. And I've built too much into this frequency to abandon it now. So I'll be your signal in the dark, whether the coordinates save you or not. And if you get there, if you see the sky clear and feel dirt that doesn't shift beneath your feet, broadcast back. Tell us. Tell everyone. Let the echo of truth outrun the shadow of lies. Still here, still relaying. I've been reading listener messages, scratched into plastic, carved into old tablets, spoken into static. They're choosing. Some are leaving, east, on foot, in makeshift rigs cobbled from memory and gasoline. Others are staying, choosing familiarity over risk, even if the familiar means rot and tremor. There was one note that shook me. From an older couple. Said, we lived here through the wars, the outages, the floods. If this is where it ends, so be it. Another from a boy. Said he buried his mother 2 days ago. Asked if he should follow the Kansas signal or stay by the grave. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Instead, I thought of Ava. I remember her fingers tracing maps by candlelight. Paper maps, frayed edges, ink running from humidity. She'd whisper, every collapse makes a corridor. Every break leaves a line. She believed escape routes didn't just appear. They were formed in the wreckage. She drew one once. A path through Nebraska's back roads to the edge of Kansas. Said it was hypothetical, but the way her voice trembled, It felt like more than theory. That map is folded inside a book beside the transmitter. I haven't opened it in weeks. Tonight I did. And the corridor she traced. It crosses almost perfectly with the new coordinates. Still remembering her hands, still trusting her lines. Before I sign off, I'm going to play it. What came through at the end of the Kansas broadcast? No call to action, no password, no announcement, just a child's voice, singing, clear, steady, like glass that never cracked. A lullaby I didn't recognize, but felt like something from long before the world buckled. It wasn't recorded. I could hear the slight breath between words, the tiny catch in her throat when she forgot the second verse. Real, present, and that's when it happened. I cried, on air. Not because it was beautiful, not because it meant safety, but because for 30 seconds the world wasn't burning. It was soft. It was song. It was a child who hadn't learned to fear silence yet. And maybe that's what sanctuary really is. Not unshaking ground, not clean air, but a voice too young to know despair, still choosing to sing. If you heard it too, hold it, bottle it, let it carry you one more day. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still breaking, still human. This is Miles, broadcasting from Station 0, or what's left of it. At 3:11 this morning, the desert floor howled. That's the only word I have for it. Howled. Not rumbled, not trembled. It screamed through every stone and bone and frequency, like the planet cracked its jaw and let out a cry it had been holding since the beginning, an 8th of July, somewhere near the Sevier line. But that's just the surface. What matters is what it didn't register. What the seismographs can't show you. The depth, the violence beneath the numbers. The rupture that severed 3 relay stations and brought down the east antenna. The quake wasn't sharp. It wasn't sudden. It unfolded like a roar stretched thin across hundreds of miles. A pulse that lifted the horizon, held it, then dropped it like a body too heavy to carry anymore. I lost contact with the Montana outpost and the Sierra Loop. I'm still waiting on word from the basin cities, but the silence feels like an answer. I watch the shelves here ripple, watch dust float in zero gravity, as if the laws of weight had forgotten their place, and for a moment I thought maybe the whole world had lifted, was rising, only to fall. The mic slipped from the stand. The light flickered. I braced the wall and whispered my name, not to myself, but to the ground, as if maybe the earth needed to know who it was hurting. This wasn't a warning. This was confession, admission, and if we're lucky, maybe it was the last of its strength. Still here, still beneath it, still miles below the scream. The quake passed, but it left more than cracks and silence. It left a message buried in a forgotten drive. Old flash unit, dust-covered, clipped to the emergency band receiver. I must have overlooked it in the madness. Plugged it in tonight. Power barely held. One file. Timestamp. 46 days ago. Jonah's voice. My brother. Not live, not now, but real. He said, "Shelter's coming along. 4 reinforced. Maybe 5 if we get the steel by Thursday. Kids are strong. Cold as hell. But spirits are high." A pause. "Tell Miles I found the old drawing he made. Crayons, red and blue towers, still pinned to my locker. Then static, then nothing." I didn't cry. Not yet. Just sat there, holding the mic like a relic, listening to the voice that once called me reckless, once called me brave. He didn't know it would be his last check-in. They never do. But he remembered me. In a sentence, in a scribble, from a different lifetime. That's what matters. That's the part I send forward now, into whatever air is left. If this transmission reaches Seattle, if anything remains, let it find him. Let it reach the steel and the kids and that old drawing on the wall. This is Miles, still speaking, for both of us now. After the quake, I wandered. No destination. Just feet following fault lines I couldn't see. I ended up at the old city library, or what's left of it. Roof gone, walls folded inward, but the shelves somehow still stood, crooked, charred, but standing. I stepped through shattered frames and bent steel, past the biography aisle until I found a book, dust-covered, spine cracked, titled "We Thought It Would Last." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because irony still breathes where logic doesn't. I didn't take food. I didn't take tools. I took that book and two others, one with poems, one with constellations. There's something about holding stories in a world trying to forget itself. Pages that don't blink, words that don't fade in static, memory that doesn't need electricity. I thought of Ava again, how she used to underline things, how she once said, "If the buildings fall, the stories must stand." These books aren't survival kits. They're anchors, proof that before we bartered in breath and counted hours of light, we dreamed in stanzas. So I brought them back, tucked them beside the mic. The ink will outlast me. The stories will speak when my voice doesn't, because even ruins deserve readers. Still here, still turning pages. The lights just blinked, twice. That means the battery's near the end. The last generator coughed during the aftershock. Sputtered and stuttered like a tired old man climbing stairs in the dark. I jury-rigged what I could. Burned through 3 fuses just to bring the mic back. This is borrowed power. A breath stolen from entropy. But I keep talking, not because it's easy. Not because I think anyone will answer, but because silence is heavier than speech. And the moment I stop filling the air, the dust starts to win. There's a part of me that believes the earth listens. That maybe these words carve their way into soil, into stone. That maybe the planet, broken as it is, still craves a story to carry. Or maybe it's not the earth. Maybe it's you. Maybe someone somewhere still has a receiver. Still leans toward a rusted speaker and hears me. Not as noise, but as heartbeat. So I keep talking, even when the light flickers, even when the hum drops, even when my breath fogs in a room that hasn't seen the sun in weeks. I speak because something inside me remembers what it felt like to be heard. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still surviving, still here. Until the signal fades, let me know when you're ready for the final section. This is Station 0. And for the first time in 47 days, the earth is quiet. No hum, no tremble. Just the kind of stillness that feels like it was waiting for us to notice. At first, I thought I'd gone deaf. Checked the seismograph 3 times. Nothing. Readings flat as glass. Then I heard it. Birds. 2 of them, small. Singing not in defiance, but in ignorance. As if they hadn't inherited our fear. As if they remembered a time before the ground betrayed us. There's wind, too. Not the sulfur wind, not the ash-dragged breath of ruptured sky. Real wind. Cool. Wandering. Dust still clings to the walls here, but it floats softer now, like it's forgotten the violence that brought it down. I don't trust it. But I can't deny that. For the first time since the overpass fell, I closed my eyes and didn't feel like the floor might vanish beneath me. The silence is unfamiliar, and somehow that makes it louder than any quake. It makes you think of things you've been too busy surviving to feel. I lit a candle for Juniper today, whispered her name. It didn't echo. The silence held it gently. Someone once told me silence was the absence of sound. They were wrong. It's a presence. It's a weight. It presses on your ribs and asks you what kind of person you are when there's no more shaking. To blame. This isn't comfort, but it's something close to the memory of it. So I'm broadcasting in the stillness, just in case someone else is feeling it too. Still here, still quiet, still listening. Don't mistake this quiet for kindness. There's a term in seismology, seismic quiescence, a lull before a major rupture, a vacuum in the fault's behavior, as if the earth is winding up, holding its breath before it tears again. And sometimes that stillness lasts days, sometimes weeks, but it rarely means relief. It means stored energy. It means tension. It means a pause with teeth behind it. I've seen the charts. The crust beneath the Great Basin isn't stabilizing. It's stretching. The deep sensors we still have access to show thermal rise, not fall. What we're feeling now isn't repair, it's recoil. Still, I can't blame those who want to believe this is healing. The air smells different. The birds have come back. And when you step outside, there's no immediate threat. Just the subtle terror of waiting. Maybe the body's too tired to brace anymore. Maybe this stillness feels like peace because we've forgotten what peace really was. But if you're listening, stay cautious. Don't confuse breath for recovery. Not yet. Because sometimes the world doesn't scream before it breaks. Sometimes it whispers, still transmitting, still skeptical, still beneath the weight of the pause. The Kansas broadcast changed everything. Even here, buried beneath concrete and memory, I can feel the shift. People are moving. I read messages tonight, scratched into broken tablets, scratched into hope. Some of you are leaving, walking east toward a signal that might be salvation or might be a ghost in the wires. I don't judge you. There's courage in the step, even when the destination is unknown. Others have chosen to stay. Not out of fear, but resolve. One message said, "This ground raised my children. If it takes me, so be it." Another, "If the earth kills me, at least I'll be where I understood it." We all survive in our own language, some in motion, some in memory. I'll stay too. For now, this transmitter, as fragile as it is, has more reach than my feet. And maybe someone still needs the echo. But wherever you go, know this. You're not walking alone. The moment you heard that voice through the static, you became part of something again. Still here, still watching the map, still walking with you, in signal. I stepped outside tonight, not far, just to the edge of the collapsed stairwell where the open sky peeks through like a forgotten dream. The stars were clear, sharper than I remembered. The ash had thinned just enough to let the sky tell its stories again. I saw the outline of the city, what's left of it. Cracked silhouettes, half-fallen towers, windowless husks, and yet it didn't feel dead. It breathed, not like a city of engines and noise, but like a memory held in place by starlight. I stood there, listening, not for tremors, but for stillness, and in it, I found something close to reverence. This place we built, this life we lost, it mattered, still matters, because even when everything collapses, something remains. A shape, a shadow, a story. I said Ava's name, said Jonah's, said Juniper's, said mine, just once. Let the wind carry them. Let the stars keep them. And now I speak to you, beneath the same sky. This is Miles, still breathing, still beneath the silence, still broadcasting.